Hello again. As we reach the final session of this series on influential women in the New Testament, we take a step back from the Acts of the Apostles, where we yesterday thought about the businesswoman Lydia, to return to the Gospels, and to the story in Luke about an incident at the home of Martha and Mary. Let's listen to it. Jesus came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." We meet Martha and Mary again in John's Gospel, where they are both distressed at the death of their brother Lazarus, whom Jesus then restores to life. But in our story today, it's very much Martha who is centre stage, and with whom the Lord's conversation takes place. The fact that Martha is listed first in our story today suggests that she was the head of this little household and the one who ensured that it functioned as a well-run home should. We can safely assume that she and her sister were part of that band of women we've already mentioned this week, a group who provided Jesus and his disciples with regular support out of their own resources as he went about his travelling ministry. Jesus, maybe accompanied by others, comes to stay. There are a lot of preparations to be made, so Martha is distracted and flustered, trying to make sure that everything is just so for her guest. In the modern customer service jargon, she wanted to exceed expectations. So it frustrated and annoyed her that Mary ignores all the work that's necessary and instead sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. The expression means rather more than that she was sitting with him as one does with a guest, listening politely to his conversation. Jesus is acting here as a rabbi, formally instructing one of his students, and it was most unusual for a woman to be treated as a rabbi's disciple. I imagine that this would have irritated Martha even more. Why should Mary, a mere woman, expect such a privilege? She should know her place. And so Martha snaps. She tackles Jesus head on, suggests that there is a lack of awareness and concern on his part, and she expects him to tell Mary to get on and help out with the practicalities. But Jesus does not rise to the challenge or take sides. Instead, he uses the occasion for some teaching, and he does it tenderly yet firmly. By repeating her name, Martha, Martha, he is assuring her that he does care. But equally, he points out where she is going wrong. You are worried and upset about many things. In other words, you are unduly anxious about my visit, but you don't need to be. But his final comment must have been quite challenging for Martha. Mary has taken the good part, which shall not be taken away from her. And this has similarly puzzled many Christian commentators too, right down through the centuries. At face value, it suggests that the role of disciple, student, scholar, imbibing the Master's words, is of greater value than faithful, energetic, practical service. Was Jesus really urging contemplation and spirituality over Christian action? I find it difficult to believe that. And maybe Jesus was injecting some humour into his reply to diffuse a tense situation. Listen to this as an alternative translation of the last two verses. Martha, Martha, you are worried and harassed about putting a meal on the table with a whole lot of courses. One will do perfectly well. In this situation, Mary has chosen the best dish, and it's not going to be taken away from her. Now, I like that. Jesus is talking about priorities here and asking Martha to consider what was really important in that particular situation when he came to visit her home. Essentially, this is a story about discipleship, and it applies to everyone, men and women alike. At some point in our daily life as Christians, we should make time for quietness, contemplation, and listening. At other times, we will want and need to be active. But listening and acting are of equal value at the appropriate times. But getting the balance right between spiritual reflection and Christian activity can be difficult at times. And so we need to ask the Lord to help us order our priorities right. Well, that brings us to the end of our thoughts this week on influential women of the New Testament and what they have to teach us. I hope you've enjoyed listening to them as much as I have enjoyed preparing them and discovering truths about the New Testament's treatment of women which I had not previously appreciated fully. Thought for the day is about learning together. Let's pray. Lord, your coming brought about a transformation in the way humanity thought about human relationships, and fresh insights have bit by bit continued to emerge right down the centuries. We thank you for what we have been able to learn from the characters we have thought about this week, and pray that we may keep their example before us as we, like they, seek to live as faithful disciples. Amen.